see my son, you see a criminal. Yeah. I see my child, black child will change the world. Yeah. You see my man, you see hostility. Yeah. I see my man, strong man who's leading me.
I got you.
You say we're free, but reality, it's modern day brutality.
Welcome back, folks, to Pop Culture, the pop culture podcast with your host, Jeff and Heidi. We're back again. Our intro music was a little bit different this time, and there's a reason for that. That was our very good friend Shan with her new song, Black Lives Matter, just hit about a week or so ago. Yep. And we wanted to support her by sharing a little bit of that song with you, and we will share where you can find that song actually in the show notes. Shan Ward, as we know her, has been a part of our world for about 5 years now?
Oh, longer than that. So at least 5 to 6 years, maybe 6
right.
years.
And she's been a big part of our world because she works closely with our daughter and her show choir. She is a fantastic singer in her own right, as well as one of the best choir directors you could ever hope to come across. Her new single, Black Lives Matter, is a fantastic song that we are happy to support, and we're going to, like I said, have all the links to that down in the show notes. But more importantly, Shan is a fantastic person. We are so happy to know her and support her. She's really part of our family. We don't normally break from our tradition of opening song and all of that, and we don't do a whole lot of discussing things that aren't pop culture, but man, music is a love for all of us, and it's just exciting to see her with this new endeavor and to see her picking up some steam and people getting on board with that. It is a song that has a feature as well. It features Eclipse Darkness on a rap vocal. You may get to hear a little bit of that at the end of the episode. But yeah, our whole episode today is not going to be about music, but we definitely wanted to share that with you because we're super proud of Shan and what she's been able to accomplish, not just with our daughter and the kids that she pours her life into all the time, but with this new endeavor, this new single. So we encourage you, if you're listening to this, to support her by checking out that song. There's a link for YouTube. There's a link for Spotify. There's a link for iTunes, but we encourage you to buy the single and support her as an artist. It really means a lot to us, and I know to her as well. So a lot of big stuff, Heidi, happening in the news.
So many things.
So many things. We talked a little bit, I think, about some goings on at DC, some transitions, some possible firings.
I'm not sure if
restructuring.
If that shadow man in the background is gone, though.
Yeah, but we did talk a lot about that and how we weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yes.
And we knew that DC Fandome was coming up, and we weren't sure really what that was going to be or what kind of information was going to drop. But a lot of information did drop, and we're going to have a special guest coming up shortly. Our friend Michael Garrett's going to join us via the telephone to talk to us about some of what his thoughts on that. And I know you don't know him quite as well as I do.
Nope.
Fantastic artist. We're super happy to have him on the show. But yeah, so a lot of things happening. Before we jump into the DC Fandome with our good friend Michael, I was going to say you and I, just in our Pop Fizzle work on our YouTube channel, we've just finished reacting to 2 pretty big series, including a series finale for one and a season finale for another.
Yes.
Actually 2 season finales we just finished.
Yes.
So we've been reacting if you are not following us on YouTube. And if you're not, what's wrong with you? Where have you been?
We're a lot of fun.
Those links will be in our show notes. The only downside is that you have to look at us. We're not just voices. You will have to look at us, but we try to keep things fun and light, and we do enjoy reacting to those shows for you. So we just finished BBC's Class, which was only an 8-episode series.
Yeah.
And it was not renewed.
Yeah, it seems to be possibly living on in
audio form.
In audio format, right. Which you've got to love Big Finish and what they've done for the audio world and how they've managed to keep alive some characters in series.
If you're not familiar with Big Finish, Heidi, explain to them what Big Finish is.
Big Finish is an amazing, amazing company that has full catalogs of so many different shows.
Not just audio books.
No, audio dramas.
Right.
Audio dramas. So it's like
with big names that you know.
Yes, definitely with big names that you know. Not just shows that, you may have seen on the TV and, they're continuing in audio format, but they do have plenty of original work as well. So it's just a lot of fun to listen to. I know that when I used to sit at a desk all day in my work life previously, it was what got me through the day, was listening to those audio dramas so that I could hear all sorts of fantastic stories and acted out by the characters that we all know and love.
Right. A lot of Doctor Who audio dramas for
Yes,
you. Yeah?
but definitely Doctor Who for me, but I know they have a whole catalog of other things.
Sure. And Class now is one of those things. So if you were a fan of the show Class, you can find audio dramas involving some of those same actors, telling new stories involving those characters. We finished the 8-episode series, and it left off with a bit of a cliffhanger.
A little bit.
I'm definitely curious about where they were going with all that, and we won't spoil any of that here.
No.
But I found it was a series that I thought was worth watching. I enjoyed my time watching it.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I expected it to be.
No. Definitely a different vibe, even though it was, kind of a spin-off of Doctor Who, definitely a different vibe to it, different stories being told. I know that, like we always say with different stories and shows, it takes a while for everyone involved to kind of catch their footing and have, like, a really, really good momentum with the stories that they're telling. So a couple of the first episodes, we were very kind of we made a lot of comparisons to, say, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and other teen-ish type shows, mostly Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. Well, we compare everything in life to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
We kind of do. It's okay. But it caught its momentum, and it told a really good, well-balanced, organic story from start to finish, and I thought that was really great for the eight episodes that we got for it.
Absolutely. And it even though it closed out on a cliffhanger, it did feel, the main storyline that was running through the season got its ending.
Yes.
They were just prepping for another season unfortunately, or a series that they unfortunately never got. And those things happen.
They do.
But I definitely enjoyed my time watching the show, and I feel like, over time the characters grew on me. I felt more. I think early on I just kind of wasn't sure of the tone. It was one of those shows where, because it was connected to Doctor Who, I expected a Doctor Who tone, I think. That was my mistake. That was a preconceived notion that I had going in. Shame on me. But then, once I got to know the characters and got to feel for the vibe of the show, I really did enjoy my time through it. The one thing that I'll say, and it's not just that show, but I've noticed, not necessarily as a watcher of these shows, but as an editor who is trying to edit these reactions for YouTube, there are so many pauses in people's dialogue when they say things on these shows. It is maddening to try to cut something together and keep it under 10 minutes.
Oh, for fair use.
To be able to claim fair use for that content. Because people, and I can't think of an example right off the top of my head, but somebody will say, "I told you, you were never going to be able to," and it's like, why did you need to pause so long between?
Well, I suppose that the school of acting has moved on from dramatic mumbling to dramatic pauses.
Maybe.
Yes.
But same thing happens. We've been watching DC Universe's Stargirl.
Lots of pausey.
And there's lots of pausing in between finishing statements there. And I know that sometimes people do that in dialogue, and so it's realistic. But when you're trying to get a whole story into 44 minutes or whatever it is that they're trying to pack it into.
Yeah, don't waste the time with the pauses.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It happens. It happens to the best shows. That's just my own minor complaint.
When we're directors of big budget type things, we can
never happen.
Right.
I don't think I need that kind of pressure in my life. Let's just say that.
Oh, I'm sure we could figure out how to run things.
I wanted to talk about the two that had the big finales, though, that are not older shows, because Class ended years ago.
It did, about 3 years ago.
DC Universe Stargirl just ended its first season finale.
Yeah.
Season ended with a bang.
Indeed.
It was a fun ride. And I say that as somebody who was very hesitant to climb on board that show when it started. Not because I doubted Jeff Johns or DC's ability to tell us a good story, but I just wasn't sure because of the shows coming out of the DC Universe app. They've been a bit hit or miss.
They have. Yeah.
They've been hit, Doom Patrol. They've been miss Titans for the most part. So I just wasn't sure what to expect. Stargirl gave us a really fun ride, and I'm glad that they showed those episodes on the CW as well. Next season is going to only be on the CW, is my understanding. And I think it's a good fit, but it also, I hope that it makes the other CW DC shows step up their game. I felt like it brought a lot of quality.
It really did.
To, especially some of the effects and things seemed like they were higher quality than what we were getting from some of the CW shows. So I hope that can continue.
Yes.
But yeah, without any spoilers, highly recommend.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Same.
10 out of 10 doctors recommend. Not
the Whovian kind.
Not the Whovian kind.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I was like, wait, 1 through 10. What about 11, 12, and 13?
No.
Okay, and more.
Okay. There is no 13 in this dojo.
Princess is in another castle.
All right. No, I really do. I really did enjoy that show from start to finish. And, like any show, and we said this numerous times in our videos, it takes time to find your footing as a new show. We love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We mention that frequently.
Yes.
It took a good season to get its legs.
Yes.
Season 2 was a vast improvement over season 1, even though I love some elements of season 1. Stargirl found its legs within, I would say, 5 or 6 episodes?
I would say, by episode 5, it was definitely caught its momentum and was just barreling forward.
Yeah, a lot of fun, that. And then, of course, the series finale of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, no.
Again, no spoilers there,
Yeah.
but we did enjoy that ride quite a bit. And I think that ended up being, although a very different season from a lot of the seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it ended up being one of the best, I felt like.
Yeah, for sure.
So many good character beats, so many good interactions and use of the time travel plot device and all of those things. They were done so well.
Yeah.
So if you have not, if you were one of those people who gave up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Before midway through season 1, first of all, shame on you. You missed some fantastic television.
Yeah, you should have stuck with it.
Secondly,
Trust the writers.
Secondly, once you're over your shame,
Watch it.
they are available on Hulu, I believe, maybe on Netflix. I don't know.
Not sponsors.
Not sponsors, but they are available, and I think they're all moving over to Disney Plus at some point. So be on the lookout for those. Definitely watch them. They're definitely worth a watch, and some of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe are on that show.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
They are such great
it's funny how television can do that for you, because I say repeatedly that some of my favorite Star Wars characters come from the Clone Wars and Rebels. And they're not on the big screen.
No.
They're not those guys. No. I like those guys, but some of my favorite characters come from the other stuff. Likewise, I love the MCU. I love all those characters. I cried along with everybody in Endgame.
Yes.
Multiple times. Every time somebody shows those scenes.
Every time.
But some of my favorite Marvel characters are from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I really am going to miss them, miss seeing them on a weekly basis.
Same.
Anyway, that's what we've been up to since the last time we talked to you. Finishing up those things, we do have some new series that are getting ready to come out.
Yes.
Including one that I'm very excited about. Heidi has never seen the majority of one of my favorite series of all time, Farscape. So we have begun doing filming reactions to Farscape. Now, none of those are up online yet. You will find them very shortly after you hear this podcast.
Yes.
So we are starting Heidi in season 1
season
with
1,
me, watching our way episode by episode all the way through until we get to the Peacekeeper Wars. We are very excited about that. In true Heidi fashion, she has seen the Peacekeeper Wars, has no idea how those characters got there.
Well, I mean, I think, I knew a little bit about Farscape, and I knew of the characters,
Some boy you liked was into those things.
Anyway, the premise was, just passed right by that. I mean, I understood the premise of the show, and I kind of knew who the characters were, but I never actually watched every episode. I think I might have caught, half an episode here or there, but never really saw anything.
So we're starting that journey together and going through it. And I'm excited because it's been a long time since I've watched. And I'm very old, and we point this out a lot because I forget things. I'm kind of like a goldfish. Mm-hmm. If you leave the room, chances are I'm not going to remember you when you come back in. You'll need to tell me your name, how we know each other, that kind of thing.
Or at least or if I leave the room, I kind of forget why.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, so I'm excited to rewatch them with you because there's so many things I don't remember, but I just get excited when we're going to watch. And so I'm enjoying going through. We filmed, 4 of them now?
I think at least 4
or 5, yeah. And I'm enjoying the ride so far. And then we also have a new reaction series that is just Heidi by her lonesome.
All by myself.
Watching Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
That is, so I'm actually really, really excited about that. So I watched a lot of the Star Trek Next Generation stuff. Next Generation, right? It's not New Generation. It's Next Generation. Oops. Okay, showing my
I'm giving her a scornful look from across the table, folks.
True non-Trekkie fashion. I don't remember all the names of everything. So sorry. But I did watch a lot of the Next Generation series, enough to know the characters well.
I believe the preferred term is Trekker.
I don't believe so. Stop that. He's trying to fool me now. I knew that Deep Space Nine came out around the same time, and I just never got into it. There was another one, wasn't there? Was it Babylon 5?
Which was not Star Trek, right?
Which is not Star Trek, but that came out somewhere around that same time. So there was a big explosion of Star Trek type things. There was
Well, that was kind of the era where syndicated shows became a thing.
Yeah.
So we had Xena and Hercules and all those things. Suddenly,
desperately to remember what the other one was.
Suddenly, syndication was a big thing.
It really was.
The other one was the Kevin Sorbo one, right?
Well,
that was Andromeda.
That's Andromeda. So that was another one, another spacey
right. Babylon 5,
spacey type thing. Babylon 5. But there was another Star Trek series that came out. Voyager, yes, that's the one. I never saw that either. So of those, I kind of did my own little survey, like just reading through people's things and online, because there are a couple of different con groups that
Every boy my age watched Voyager for 3 words: 7 of 9.
Oh yeah, that. I think I know who that is, but I just never really paid attention. But from just talking to you, especially because you watched both,
right?
It seemed like Deep Space Nine would be more my speed. I loved everything about Caprica, the prequel series to Battlestar Galactica, with all of its political in-dealings and sort of maneuvering.
All the stuff I hate.
Which I'm so sorry. I loved that stuff. It's just so much fun to see the intricacies and the nuances and the things that people will do to get what they want.
I want
sort of
cool
thing.
ships and explosions.
Yeah. I'm okay with those too. Actually, those are a lot of fun. But those are the stories that kind of I really dig those sort of stories. And so you told me that Deep Space Nine is probably a little more that speed.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let's react to that. And you're like, no, I already watched those.
Well,
things.
no, I've already watched them, and I did love that series, and it has a very special place in my heart. I'm fairly certain I've watched every single episode of that, and I think I'll probably join you for a few episodes as they come up.
Yes.
But no, I'm not going to sit through the whole series again. Plus, I figured it was good to give you a chance to sort of react on your own to something. I think I'm going to be doing that too. I'm not going to announce that series just yet.
Ooh, excitement.
But I can tell you that it may end up being another space series. We seem to be on a roll with the sci-fi, which is funny because we don't watch a whole lot of it.
We don't. But the thing is, sci-fi is such a great genre as far as storytelling that can be done. You can have fantasy, you can have politics, you can have battles and explosions and cool ships. There's so many things you can do with it. So it's a really great broad genre.
Yeah. And I think that's always a good thing, because you can talk about things that are very now without them feeling preachy and over the top a lot of times, because you can cover them in enough of the genre stuff that it doesn't really stick out.
Right. I feel like, I think we, just a little spoiler for we kind of discussed some of the stuff in Farscape, and Farscape was 20 years ago and it still feels sort of fresh.
Right.
So, sci-fi can do that. It can still be very fresh, even if it's not hot off the presses.
Now, for those of you saying, I can't believe you're watching Farscape and Deep Space Nine and not reacting to Firefly. We've seen Firefly so many times. We love Firefly. We can quote Firefly. So you wouldn't get anything good out of that reaction from us.
Definitely not. We will fully endorse anyone who is embarking on the journey of reacting to Firefly. It is a gut wrencher of a 13 episode series with a movie to end it all, and it was amazing. But
Absolutely.
You won't get any good reactions out of us for those. So,
but if you want to see some good reactions to those, I know Blind Wave has gone through Firefly and Serenity. I know the Normies have gone through Firefly and Serenity. So there are plenty of reaction channels out there that have done that. And it's always fun to watch somebody discovering Firefly for the first time. That's why I wanted to do Farscape with Heidi, because I feel like Farscape doesn't get nearly as much love on YouTube and in social media stuff as something like Firefly does. And so I kind of wanted to shine a little light on it and have some fun with it again.
Yeah, go a little backwards and see. I mean, everyone's kind of moving backwards through the years for other things. Like plenty of kids who were born when Buffy came out are kids, sorry guys, but young adults who are reacting to it when they were in diapers when it first came out. So it's it's really fun watching them kind of from their new perspective, enjoying these programs just as much as we did when we were watching it.
Sure. We've been going back and watching people react to Buffy and Angel and things like that recently, just because those shows meant so much to us. And it's always interesting to see a new generation kind of come across them and embrace them and see what things connect and what things don't and that kind of thing. So, definitely, if you haven't already checked out our YouTube channel, be sure and do that. I don't know why you'd want to listen to us if you don't know us from that, but some people just like to podcast and they don't care about YouTube, and that's fine. We'll always be back with a podcast to talk about some of these things, but definitely check us out if you want to on YouTube, and we will be doing those reactions coming up soon. We already have our full reactions up for Stargirl and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and BBC's Class. As always, we have to abide by fair use, but if you want to watch the full reactions to those things, you can do that on Patreon, and that link is always in our show notes as well. Now, before we jump to our special guest, I did want to tell you a little bit of housekeeping here. And that's that we don't make any money off of this podcast. You're not being inundated with advertisements or anything right now. We're just not at that point yet. We're trying to grow our listeners and our listening base by just being ourselves and having fun and doing this thing pretty freestyle, pretty laid back, not really worrying about anything.
Yeah, we're definitely unscripted, that's for sure.
But because there is a pandemic on, it's been difficult for me to get out and sell books, which is what I normally do when I'm not parked in front of a microphone or in front of a YouTube camera. But I am currently running a back-to-school special on my web store. All paperbacks are currently 30% off if you use promo code BACK2, the number 2, school, back2school, through my webpage, which is jeffreypatricklamar.com. Sorry, jpatricklamar.com. See, I'm already... Yeah, Heidi gave me a look. Heidi threw me a look.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't your website.
We will put a bit.ly to that store link in the show notes as well, but it's jpatricklamar.com/store. And for a limited time, all paperbacks 30% off with that promo code BACK, the number 2, school. Whether you like poetry, YA fantasy, or speculative fiction, I've got you covered. I highly recommend, if you're going to start with something and you're unfamiliar with my writing, or you're not sure what genre you'd prefer, checking out my book, Shadow Plays, which is a collection of short stories. It's easy enough to flip through there and pick one you think you might like and give it a shot. Anyway, that's it for my recommendation. Give us just a moment, and we're going to have Michael Garrett on.
It's modern day brutality. On the grave is calling me. Only Christ can set us free. It might not matter to go, but yeah, I know the truth. It's Christ that we live through.
All right, welcome back to Pop-Up Culture. We are joined today by Michael Garrett, artist extraordinaire, good friend, and we wanted to have him on. We're going to talk a little bit about, first of all, welcome, Michael.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about DC Fandome, which is a unique event. I think it's not over. I think they're planning on a second day of this stuff.
I think, according to the website, it's going to be in another 17 days or so.
Okay, yeah.
As of today's recording.
So they dropped a bunch of information the other day, so I'm curious about what's coming in a few weeks. I don't really have any spoilers on that.
I know they seem to have put out quite a bit of exciting news and updates.
Yeah. So let's start, I guess, with trailers, because obviously, anytime one of these movies drops a big trailer, it's noteworthy. Now, Wonder Woman 1984 or 84, however they're doing that. Are they just calling it 84 or 1984? It's 1984, I think.
I think it's 1984.
Yeah. This movie, I feel like of all the things to get hit by this pandemic stuff, Wonder Woman really had to kind of take the brunt of it.
Yeah, I was really sad about that.
Yeah, we should have been watching this movie by now. But we did get a second full trailer. Michael, did you get a chance to see that?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think? Now, I know the second trailer, the big thing surrounding it was, of course, the cheetah reveal, because Kristen Wiig's cheetah, we'd seen images of her in her non-cheetah form, obviously, in the previous trailers and TV spots and that kind of thing. But everybody wondered, like, are they going full CGI? Are they going, Kristen Wiig in a leopard print or a cheetah print? Or like, what is actually going to happen? But we actually got to see some full-on CGI. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. It's one of the biggest complaints that I've heard from DC trailers, and I can agree with the complaint, but they revealed too much. In Justice League, they revealed names blanking on me.
Steppenwolf.
Yeah. They revealed their villains in their full glory in the trailer, and I think a lot of times those trailers are better suited to leaving it up to your imagination until you're actually seeing it in the theater. But with that being said, the few shots we see of her in action, it looks pretty well done. I've no complaints of what I've seen so far.
I agree. Now, Heidi, you didn't see the trailer.
I didn't get a chance to.
You've seen the previous trailers, though, with her just in regular clothes and kind of setting her up to be Diana's friend and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that they kind of were backed into a corner with this, because Cheetah is one of those characters that if they had just given us Kristen Wiig in a print, then people were going to complain about that. They were going to call lame on that. So I think they needed to show us that wasn't the way they were going. But whether they gave us too much or not, I guess we'll have to see that within the context of the whole movie. And, I agree with...
That's one person's preference. Sometimes I like the trailer to tease me and get me excited and make me want to go see the film without giving up too much. And I do think DC has a tendency to give up too much in their trailers. And that's kind of how I felt for 1984. I do feel that, the movie has been hurt by the delays.
Sure.
And I know they're trying to reignite the excitement for it. And, the toy lines have hit the stores already. Lots of great art out there, lots of great posters and material have already hit stores. And, the movie still seems like a long ways away before we'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
But it's getting closer.
But I think on that point, on your point about the trailer showing too much, I think that's a problem with a lot of, I don't think that's a DCEU problem necessarily. I think it's a problem with films in general. So many of them seem to show too much. I think you're right on the money with Justice League. It showed too much. This film, I kind of feel like it's in that same camp, but I don't really think that that's necessarily a DC problem so much as a trying to pitch your movie to a modern movie audience who has a big screen at home, doesn't necessarily feel like, even before the pandemic, paying the kind of money to go to a theater unless they know that it's going to be a spectacle and unless they know it's something they want to put their money behind. So they tend to give away the store in order to get you in. I think that happens sometimes.
And we know there's some movies that are better suited for theaters and some movies that can be watched at home and enjoyed. And so I do understand, that's their money-making opportunity is to have it in the theaters. And so they do need to give you a reason to go sit in the theater to watch it. And, a family afford to spend, $60, $70 to get in there and enjoy a movie. So
sure. I could actually pay to have my child mutated into a cheetah much cheaper than it costs to take them all to see this movie.
Do you really want them faster, though?
I don't want them any faster. No, I don't. Okay. Or dangerous, or more dangerous. I think that the cheetah, having it that one shot, although it was, we got to see some action there, but I think having that sort of full transformation shot there at the end, it was not too much of her necessarily, but on the movie as a whole, we know Maxwell Lord is, from these trailers, is promising to make people's dreams come true, which is probably how Kristen Wiig gets these powers in the first place. I think that's probably how we're going to end up with Steve being back alive. And so what is that going to mean? And is Steve still Steve, or is he going to turn, or what? Like, I feel like they've given away enough that I at least can piecemeal the plot together, and that's not necessarily the best thing. But anyway, it looks good and it looks entertaining. And of course, if we're able to go back into the theaters by October the 2nd, when this thing is supposed to be released, I hope that it'll be worth seeing on the big screen.
Yes, hopefully so. Yeah, I actually went to the theaters this past week and saw a 15-cent movie. So,
okay.
It wasn't a very good movie, but
well,
it was entertaining, and I got to be in the theater. So,
okay, fess up, Michael. What'd you see?
Oh, it was Bloodsport.
Oh, okay, yeah, old school.
Vin Diesel at his greatest.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Oh, Bloodsport. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. I was thinking of isn't there some sort of? Oh, you're Bloodshot.
Bloodshot. That's what I saw.
Is the Vin Diesel?
Okay.
Yeah, Bloodsport is the old school martial arts movie. Right. Okay. There you go.
Yeah, Bloodshot, and it was a predictable Vin Diesel movie, but you know what? I got in the theater and it was fun. So. Yeah,
I was gonna say, after a while of being out of the theater, it probably just felt good to do something semi-normal again.
And it cost a nickel and a dime. So.
There you go. Literally. Yeah. Okay. So that. Speaking of Bloodsport, actually, that brings us to the Suicide Squad cast reveal that we got. Idris Elba is actually playing a character named Bloodsport, so that was a fantastic segue, Michael. Thank you for that.
There we go. Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So James Gunn's Suicide Squad, it's a sequel. They're not replacing anything that came before. As a matter of fact, we got some of the same actors involved,
Amazing.
Plus a whole slew of new actors in new parts. Did you get to watch that sort of? It was really just a character announcement, wasn't it? It was just here's who's playing who.
I saw that, and did you see the kind of the behind the scenes stuff where they had little interviews with James Gunn about it also?
I saw a little bit of that as well.
Because James Gunn said something, during that piece that I thought was very interesting, considering his past work with another company, and so.
Yeah. And I think it was, I also saw a clip too. I guess they did some sort of a Zoom call at some point that was most of the cast was on the Zoom call. So it was one of those where there was just 100 people on the screen at once. And James Gunn was asking the cast questions. And the one that stood out to me was him asking Nathan Fillion, what was it like working with Michael Rooker? And his response was PTSD, which I thought was pretty funny. So yeah, among the names, I'm not going to name them all because there's a ton of them, but among the names, as I mentioned, was Idris Elba playing Bloodsport. And I'm guessing he's there because he's a very similar character to the character Will Smith played in the first Suicide Squad. So I'm guessing this is like
Deadshot.
Yeah, we don't want to, we can't replace Deadshot. We don't want to try to replace Will Smith, but we'll bring in a similar character and have Idris Elba play that. We got John Cena as Peacemaker, which I think John Cena himself described as a douchey Captain America type.
That's what it looked like, yeah.
Yeah. Nathan Fillion is TDK, which I believe is a brand new character that James Gunn created for this show.
That's fantastic.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I've never have either.
I haven't pulled out my DC encyclopedia yet. So.
Right. The Who's Who, the DC Who's Who.
The Who's Who.
Yeah, Pete Davidson from SNL as Blackguard, Michael Rooker as Savant. We still don't know who Taika Waititi's playing, but apparently he's playing a character. So there's some speculation that he could be King Shark.
Funny.
Because there was no name with that.
Yeah, and there's a good shot that he just does the voiceover.
Right.
For a character. And so, similar to what he did in Ragnarok. So.
Sure. I got to say, Michael Rooker in that long white wig was quite frightening looking as Savant. John Cena looks fantastic in the Peacemaker getup. It's such a cheesy costume anyway. To see him rocking it though it's going to be pretty awesome to see him play that character. I think we got Joel Kinnaman back as Rick Flag. We've got Jai Courtney back as Captain Boomerang. Of course, we've got Margot Robbie back as Harley Quinn. One of the others that stood out to me, of course, Sean Gunn. Of course, he was going to be in this movie one way or the other as a character called Weasel. I don't know if Weasel is a DC character or not. Guys, if you're listening to this and you know that, shoot us a line or hit us up on social media and let us know. I am unfamiliar with that. One that jumped out at me was Peter Capaldi as the Thinker.
I'm excited about
As a
that.
Doctor Who fan, seeing Peter Capaldi in a big U.S. tentpole kind of movie is pretty amazing. So
hopefully he'll do better in it than Matt Smith did in Terminator.
This is true. Yeah, there's a lot of hype around Matt Smith being in Terminator, and then Terminator Jenny Smith, as they call it online.
Didn't quite work out for him.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a continuing part, and then everybody just hated that movie, so he never really got to do anything with that. And then some other people some other characters. There's Javelin, Ratcatcher, King Shark, Mongol, which is supposed to be the daughter of Mongul, who is the destroyer of Coast City in the comics. Michael Rooker, we said, is Savant. So some interesting characters there. And I think I know, Michael, which comment you're referencing. He said something about it. Sure. What did he say? It was the biggest movie, or
it was the most epic movie that he's ever been able to piece together and be part of.
Right. So considering that he's given us Guardians of the Galaxies Volume 1 and Volume 2, that's saying something.
That is saying a lot.
And considering he's done very well with those, that he took a group of characters that nobody ever heard of and made them extremely popular all throughout, all levels of culture in our society. And so it gives me a lot of hope for what he's able to do with these DC characters. And I really expect a similar outcome.
Yeah, I do too. And I think he's at his best when he gets to play with the toys that nobody else wants to play with. I suspect that that's one of the things. And I know that, they've talked about this. The crew and the directors behind The Mandalorian have talked about how the great thing about doing that show is that they get to play. It's like getting your big brother Star Wars characters, and you get all the ones he doesn't want to play with. So you can just have all kinds of crazy adventures. You don't know anything about them, so you don't know what they would do or wouldn't do or whatever, and you just get to go nuts. And I think that works for James Gunn in this sense, that he's got some characters that everybody's excited to see again, like Harley Quinn, but he also gets to play with, what is it, Polka Dot Man or something, or the Spot or whatever he's called.
Yeah, he's Polka Dot Man.
Polka Dot Man.
Famous Batman villain.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Condiment King in this run, but I'm shocked that James Gunn wouldn't give us the Condiment King. But anyway, so I'm definitely excited to see what he does. Of course, with a cast this big and with a title like Suicide Squad, I'm not expecting most of these people to make it out. I don't know if we'll see early on, one version of the team getting taken down and then another version of the team getting sent in, or if we're going to get them all on one giant team, or what's going to happen. But I suspect a lot of death in this movie.
I really want to see what the odds are for all of them, because I'm willing to bet the Polka Dot Man does not make it very far.
I'm sure Vegas has got the odds out on that.
Yeah, definitely would love to see those odds.
They have odds on whether or not we'll finish this podcast with our sanity intact, I'm sure.
That's true.
I'm Viola Davis back as Amanda Waller. She, Viola Davis is so intimidating when she's playing that kind of a character that I totally buy her being able to keep all these people in line. So that's pretty cool too. Sure. Now, before we go to the other big movie news of the event, there was one thing that kind of falls in between the comics and the movie, and that is that DC Comics did a surprise panel where they announced that Milestone Comics is going to be revived with a new Static Shock comic, which I think is going to be a digital thing, and then a potential movie to follow. Whether that'll be an animated movie or not, I don't think they went into specifics about that. But I remember back when Batman the Animated Series was going, when they introduced the Static Shock cartoon, and, it did well and played well alongside, even had crossovers with, the Justice League cartoon and that kind of thing. And so the fact that DC's let this go for so long without having that character really featured, I know some of it may have had to do with legalities of, who has the rights to those characters and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But exciting to see, because Milestone was really a big sort of push to have black creators at the forefront and give them their own kind of world to play in that didn't necessarily have to connect to, back then at least, it didn't necessarily connect to the main DC universe. And since then, they have incorporated some of those characters into main DC continuity. So I'm curious about what they'll do with this new series, and if we'll get either an animated feature. I mean, I think if they went, given the success of something like Into the Spider-Verse, I mean, if they have a young hero that they can give the right kind of treatment that is, stands apart, but is still connected to a bigger universe. I mean, I think they could have a real hit on their hands if it's done right.
Sure, yeah, and they get the right creators on board. They get a good script, and then a great director. I think they can have a shot of at least reintroducing something to our culture and society that that a lot of people have never even heard of or don't remember.
Sure, and I think what they're doing is part of the sort of push to remind people of the character and kind of the background and all of that, and where it's come from, and kind of the milestone vibe is they're going to be re-releasing classic issues of Static Shock in digital format as well, starting next month in September. So that's kind of cool. Obviously, aside from the video game stuff, which we'll get to in a little bit, the big to-do, the big thing that everybody was kind of curious about was the Snyder Cut trailer. And what that was going to be, what that was going to look like. I confess I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I've heard enough stuff off and on since Justice League came into being about, even before the kind of controversial stuff. Like, I assume and have always assumed that Joss Whedon is the kind of guy that's going to go in and make something his own, or he's not going to be involved. Sure. So I assumed that what we got as a finished product was probably nothing close to what Zack Snyder had planned, but I also didn't really think too hard about what that might have been. At the time, it was just that he had undergone a loss and needed to take time away, and DC had reached out to Whedon to finish it. And at the time, I was like, well, he directed 2 good Avengers movies. I'm down. Was not happy with the movie overall. Where did you land on that just when it first came out?
I thought that, it did have a Joss Whedon feel to it. And when you're going, it's like a Joss Whedon feel with Zack Snyder camera angles. And it just was really weird. It was awkward. I had no problem with the casting and actors, and the overall storyline was fine, but it did seem to be a bit choppy and not quite cohesive. And
yeah,
you can understand
not finished.
Why.
Yeah, it felt a little bit cobbled together, and I think even like when I go back and watch it now, because I've gone back and like watched a few scenes, and going back now, it's like, man, I see where it's like they took that desaturated style that Snyder has and just kind of digitally punched up the colors, and it gives it a really glossy, phony kind of vibe in some spots. And I don't feel like that did them any favors. There are some bits of that movie that I like a lot that were probably
there's definitely some redeeming scenes in that movie that make it worth the watch. I mean, the whole scene when Superman's resurrected and he cuts his eyes at the Flash.
Oh yeah.
That's just one of those scenes you're like, oh my, this is what we want to see, so there are definitely some redeeming moments and redeeming dialogue between the characters. Yeah. But yes, overall, it's just kind of sewn together wonky.
And as somebody who was a big fan of Joe Kelly's run years ago on the JLA book after Grant Morrison left that title, and I forget who stepped in after Morrison, but Joe Kelly was one of the ones that followed that up. And there was a storyline that I particularly liked that sort of played with the notion of Bruce and Diana as a couple, mainly because of their mutual respect for the warrior that they saw in one another. And it didn't go very far. It was just a flirtation, and then, they both saw that it just wouldn't work, or that it would get messy, because of all that they're into. But I like the little kind of nod to that. Like, they weren't outright flirting with each other, but you could feel that there was some tension in the air when they were in the same room, and some, if not affection, at least a deep respect for one another and where they were coming from, and all of that. And that may have been Whedon, I don't know. But I definitely liked that part of the movie. There was some Flash stuff that I liked. There was some stuff with every character that I liked, but I just felt like as a whole, it just didn't really mesh well.
It didn't connect.
Yeah, Heidi, what were you like originally? Because I know you didn't really care about another cut of this movie coming.
No, I really, really didn't. Just to, I knew that there were just changes with Snyder versus Whedon, and I felt like I really didn't need to see another cut of this, just because I was like, it was okay. Like what we got was okay. And I'm like, what else do they have on the cutting room floor? They're going to try to like sew back together again. And like, do I really need to see that too? But we saw that trailer.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And I think I kind of waited because the trailer leaked before Fandome actually released it. And I'm always hesitant. Like, I don't want to trust that a leak is the actual thing. There are too many people out there that are really good at faking things. So people were reacting to it, and I was just like, I'm going to wait a minute. And then when I finally saw it, other than the fact that he reuses Hallelujah, which he used in Watchmen, I was very impressed with what I saw and very curious, because almost everything that we saw, aside from a few like iconic moments, almost everything that we saw was new to his cut. So I'm definitely curious about what turns it's going to take away from the Justice League that we actually got, and how it's going to stand apart.
Yeah, with the Snyder movie, it's a Snyder movie when you're watching a movie. I mean, it's very specific. His movies stand out, and frankly, there's not a movie that he has been the director of or been in charge of that I've disliked. So I've liked everything he's put out. And it's just because visually it's appealing.
Sure.
The camera angles are different. The even the storytelling, will have some weird turns that you weren't expecting, and it all fits, and it's all his style. And so yes, I am more excited to see this than I thought I would be. And it does look like it's going to be something that may be completely different than the original. Now, that being said, I'm not sure if DC or anything will ever kind of build off of this version of the story, because of course there's other characters that pop up and stuff like that wasn't in the original. But yeah, it's definitely be fun to see, and it's just just look at it as an alternate universe, alternate reality version of the story, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, the one thing I find a little bit weird about the whole thing is the way that they're releasing it. And I don't know if you saw that in any of the announcements or whatever, but apparently it's going to debut in 4-hour-long chunks on HBO Max, almost like a mini series in 2021. Okay. And then the whole thing will eventually be able to be viewed as an entire film. And apparently they gave him $30 million to finish this thing.
$3 million or
$30 million? $30 million to finish this thing.
Wow.
And he's confirmed that there will be no reshoots with any of the original cast. He's using only previously shot footage that was his before he left the project.
Wow.
Well, and so the reason it's broken up that way is so that the HBO people can get through that first month of a free preview.
Right.
And charge everybody a one-time fee at least.
Yeah, that'll happen the last week of the first month of preview, and then they'll space them out. Yeah, you can't blame them for that either. I know a lot of people.
They're paying $30 million for it, yeah.
Oh yeah, and I know a lot of people dropped Disney Plus, right or wrong, after Mandalorian was over, and said they'd pick it up again when season 2 drops. Yeah. There's enough on Disney Plus to keep me coming back anyway, but I get it. If you're on a tight budget, you can't
do it every month.
But the thing that blew me away, just going back to the trailer, is that he opens with that shot of Darkseid. It's like anybody asking whether Darkseid was going to be in this movie. Now, we don't know in what context, but anybody that had that question, it was answered first shot of that trailer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, which I think, pretty ballsy move on his part to set it aside.
Another villain reveal in the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it's a pretty ballsy thing to say, you know what, you speculate, you question, I'm going to put it right out there. It's going to be in there. I said it, I'm going to do it. This is what we got. We did get to see his alternate version of Steppenwolf, who is much less CGI looking and much more armored up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious. I mean, $30 million goes a long way to tighten up some CGI and add some effects and do whatever. I just don't know. I'm curious. I'd like to know a percentage of what we're talking about when we're talking about footage that we didn't see. Are we talking 20%? Are we talking 50%? Because some of the rumors are that Whedon just scrapped a bunch of stuff when he came in and did what he wanted to do. to make it his own, which is why they ended up having so many reshoots, which led to Mustache Gate and all those other things.
Oh my gosh, that mustache! That CGI.
That's clearly the creepiest part of that.
Yeah.
I try to not let it bother me, but it's just so like people can do it better with After Effects at home.
Yeah.
So why did it look like that?
It was just
who was in charge?
It just didn't feel like it was done well.
We got a little bit of information about the Black Adam movie. No trailers or anything, just got kind of an animated teaser trailer. I feel like this is the movie that I've been hearing about for years that just can't seem to get together. Like I'm interested. I enjoyed Shazam. I'm not sure how I feel about Black Adam having his own movie. It's rumored to have the JSA, which, given the popularity of Stargirl, like having the JSA in that and having it be a different thing, this is where I feel like
nobody there talks to anybody else.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, like if you got this popular thing that's going, maybe connect them in a way, or or bring back the original group on the show so that you can show them in the movie, and people will follow you over there to the movie or something. But I feel like that's where Marvel and DC really part ways, is that Marvel is working now to building its TV stuff into the movie stuff where it's all the same. They're just different forms of storytelling, but we're taking one just as seriously as we take the other. And I know that they haven't always been there, but
they kind of dropped the ball on all the Netflix
but
stuff.
We've got like all these different iterations of Flash and all these different iterations of Batman and Green Arrow and stuff running around, and it seems like maybe they're going to address some of that in the Flash movie. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it, Michael, but somebody asked, I don't know if it was the director or the producer, but somebody asked if Ezra Miller's Flash calls himself the Flash because he met Grant Gustin's Flash, because he seemed to be surprised by that name in the little crossover thing. And and they said, oh, yeah, absolutely. In our heads, that's where he got the name. He got it from Grant Gustin's Flash. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something. But, you need to give me more than that, and you need to show me that it all matters to you. I don't know. Especially DC TV, I struggle sometimes with the difference in quality between. I feel like Stargirl gave us some solid. I wouldn't say all of the CGI was solid, but I would say a good 95% of it was solid.
Yeah, I could happily ignore the stuff that was not solid.
Yeah, compared to something like sometimes the stuff on Flash, which can be laughably bad. Supergirl too sometimes had some laughably bad stuff.
CGI Flash and himself just running alongside each other.
Right, but it's like, how can you do that on this show? And then this other show is nailing it. Like, are you just using different companies? Or are you not talking to each other about,
Yes. I'm pretty sure if we were to do that research, we would find that nobody's talking to anyone there. I don't know.
Not over DC.
I don't know, Michael, if you've heard any of our previous things, but I have a running theory that there's some shadow man in the background of the Warner Brothers DC area who's just like directing things with no clue, just like trying to figure out how to make things work, and it's just he's like, no, just do it or else, and then people do it.
Somebody with way too much power and not nearly enough ideas
or brains.
Multiverse.
Yeah,
yes,
pretty much. Multiverse seems to be the answer to everything these days. But I mean, I am curious what little we know about the Flash movie, which they didn't really tell a whole lot about, but with finding out that Affleck is going to be back and Keaton is going to be back, and clearly they're going multiverse, and it's like, okay, well, we've seen multiverse done really well in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
You really got to step up and give us something fantastic if you're going to play in that pool, because we just had that. We just had that movie, and we've had multiple like animated and small screen versions of these sorts of things. So you've got to really up your game if you're going to be giving us another multiverse.
They're going to need to bring it.
And I hope they do. Sure, I mean, I want to see a really good one, so I hope they do.
Yeah, I mean, and Cavill's back on as Superman for multiple appearances. I didn't see exactly how many, but he's not going to have his own movie, but he's supposed to be making appearances, and so I suspect that he may show up in the Flash for a moment too, also. So.
Huh.
Okay, and then before we move into video games, we got the Dark Knight or the Dark Horse of the trailer drops, because nobody was really sure what to think about Robert Pattinson as the Batman. I think everybody trusted Matt Reeves to give us something good, given his work on the Planet of the Apes stuff. But how it was going to work, what it was going to look like, the vibe of it, the feel of it, the suit. I mean, lots of questions, right? And you know how fandom in general can be of any fandom, Star Wars, Doctor Who, whatever. Everybody's got loads of questions. Everybody got loads of opinions. And they don't always express them appropriately.
Never.
But we finally got this trailer, or this teaser trailer. It felt like a full-on trailer to me. What were your thoughts on that?
It's pretty interesting. I have never seen a trailer flip the fandom around 360 degrees like it did. I mean, I remember 3 months ago, or maybe up to 6 months ago, when Pattinson was first announced, and people were like, "Oh my goodness, this is going to be a complete disaster."
Sure.
I had a lot of people that were like, "What are they thinking? What in the world?" And since the trailers dropped this week, I haven't seen anything bad. I've seen lots of excitement for the movie, and so nobody's really questioning Pattinson as a pick for playing Bruce Wayne. And it's really kind of turned the whole fandom around on getting on board with this trailer. So.
Yeah. Now, Heidi and I say all the time when we're talking about TV shows and movies and stuff that you can have a really great trailer for a really sucky movie, and you can have a really sucky trailer for a really great movie. So you can't always tell by that. But I know that, Matt Reeves has a history of giving us good movies, solidly done movies, smart movies even. So I felt good about that. And I think my qualms about Pattinson never really got too big because I felt like Matt Reeves wouldn't have picked him if he had any doubt about whether he'd be able to bring the right vibe to the table.
Yeah, I think he's doing Robert Pattinson himself is doing a good job trying to leave Twilight behind him.
Well, yeah, that too. But also, he's picked some really out there parts from indie stuff to bigger stuff where he has a smaller part. Like, he doesn't seem to be a guy right now that's interested in being necessarily the center of attention unless it's the right thing. He seems content to play some smaller characters. Like, he's in Tenet. He's not one of the big players in that, but he's been all over the trailer. I think he just wants good parts. And so, the fact that he's on board with this and willing to, I can't even imagine the pressure of playing Batman. It's got to be overwhelming to some extent, but man, I hope that the movie is as good as the trailer is. I was super excited to see it. And it's funny because we watch a lot of reactors on YouTube and that kind of thing because we do that. So after we react to things, we always check and see what other people thought. And so many people that even were still kind of questioning it at the beginning of the trailer, like, what is it? What's happening? And then as soon as they get to that scene where he beats the tar out of that guy, they're like, I'm so in. It's like they just needed to know that he could do that. They just needed to know that he could be scary and intimidating. And once they saw it, they were on board, Yeah, I'm definitely excited about it. Several people, 2 or 3 people that I watched said it felt like the movie Seven, but with Batman in it. And I was like, that's a great description of that because it really does kind of feel that way. That Gotham feels really dirty and, not necessarily as gothic as like the Burton version, not necessarily as, just typical big city corruption that we got in the Nolan stuff, but just like, who knows what's going on in those streets? You know what I mean? It feels just dirty. And I think we're seeing a very young Batman, so I think that's pretty cool too. I mean, even the muscle car vibe of the Batmobile, I think,
I really like that.
Attests to it being a very early version of Batman. Like, he doesn't have all the gear together yet. He's still figuring it out. But yeah, definitely excited. And the one thing several people brought up was like, I was so glad when he pulled the mask off that his eyes were still black. Because all these movies black out their eyes in that costume, and then they pull the thing off and they have no blackout on their eyes. It's like, how does that work?
Magic.
Movie magic, Treat us like we're stupid. But yeah, this movie didn't do that. I thought the trailer was fantastic, and it was really just kind of a tease. I mean, to let us know that we were looking at the Riddler. Have you seen the speculation about Colin Farrell and his makeup?
I haven't.
There's a shot, and at the con that you and I were at together, Val Kilmer was there. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, there's Uncle Mr.
Yeah, there's there was a question about a character that I think is supposed to be Cobblepot, Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, in the trailer. And there's one good shot of his face, and then there's another shot later on of him driving a car, and it looks nothing like Colin Farrell. But apparently that is Colin Farrell under a bunch of makeup. And a bunch of people were like, it looks like Val Kilmer. Like, he looks like Val Kilmer. And if he's going to look like Val Kilmer and we're not going to see Colin, we're not going to see Colin Farrell, why not just hire Val Kilmer? It would have been great.
Bring Kilmer in, absolutely.
Yeah, it would have been great to give him the work and to have him play a villain in a franchise in which he's already played the hero.
Yeah, that would have been a weird turn, though.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't think anybody would necessarily have... Yeah. I mean, yes, fans would have known it, but I don't think we'd have any trouble seeing him as a new character. He's a very different Val Kilmer now.
Yeah.
But
Kilmer had the best Batman lips, so I mean,
that's right.
This is true.
That's right. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see. We got a little taste of the Catwoman. We got a little taste of the Riddler. Got a little taste of Cobblepot. Some speculation about that gang as to whether they might be a Joker gang or whether there's some other kind of gang.
Do we know if they're setting this up as a trilogy or?
Matt Reeves planned it as a trilogy, correct?
Okay, because I mean, I just don't want them to make the same mistakes that they made, in the mid '90s, bringing 85 villains into a movie and making it too big.
Right. So my guess is that they're just giving us a taste of some of these, and that Riddler's going to be the main focus, and that they'll build out from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but let's turn our attention toward video games. Now, I'm not a big video game player. I know you've got kids, so you probably play more than I do. I've got kids, but they don't have any of these newfangled systems, man. We're playing old school SNES over here, so.
Yeah.
But one of the big ones to come out was the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Were you able to see that trailer?
I was not able to see it. Is it going to be a fighting game?
It is. No, it's very much. It's by the same people who did the Arkham Asylum games.
Oh, okay.
And it is very much I guess the Justice League has gone bad, so the only people that we have to turn to stop them are the Suicide Squad. But
That's
it's
right.
really.
I saw something online where this would be the third game in a row where it's an evil Superman.
Yeah, and I saw some people had some qualms about that as well.
Interesting.
The trailer starts off with them, being ordered around by Waller, and Harley Quinn is just like talking to her on the comm as if they're doing the stuff, but really she's just sitting there and like running her fingers across the table and jumping over little rocks and stuff like she's the one doing all those things, but she's just pretending. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, lay down some cover fire. Come on, Boomer. And she's yelling, and you see Boomerang's like sitting back drinking a beer. They're on a rooftop somewhere, and then Deadshot is there, and he's like cleaning a jam from his gun or whatever and getting it together. And you see that Metropolis has been taken over seemingly by Brainiac. And you see like a big Brainiac ship like on top of a building or something. And so you get the feeling that, there's lots of action happening around them, but they don't seem to be too concerned about it. They're just like blowing off steam. And then some sort of creatures come crawling up, and Deadshot shooting them away or whatever. And Waller's like, look, I'm going to blow those things in your head, those explosives in your head, if you don't get busy. Get on it. And so they do, and you see a nice little montage of some of the fighting moves, and Harley flying around, and Deadshot's got a jetpack and shooting at things, and you see Boomerang. Boomerang apparently is even though it's the old school Boomerang, he's got the powers of his son in the comic, so he's a speedster like the Flash, so he's like running around super fast and throwing boomerangs super fast and whatever. And it's really like you're not seeing any playable stuff. You're just it's all kind of animated, right? And then Waller's like, proceed to target Alpha, blah blah blah. And Harley's like, who is this mysterious target Alpha? And then you see Superman go crashing through a jet or something. King Shark's there too. I failed to mention that. And King Shark is like, hey, look, guys, it's Superman. He just saved that pilot. Or whatever, and they look up and see Superman up there, and then the pilot just starts freaking out, and Superman's hands like, no, please. And you see Superman's eyes get red, and then the next thing is just a shot of him with like ashes falling away, and his eyes are still glowing red, and Boomer's like, hey, do we ever figure out who we're supposed to kill? And they all just kind of point up at Superman, and he goes, oh, and then I cut it before the curse word, and then the very last shot, they showed like the little credits, everything, and then the very last shot of Superman sitting there in a boomerang coming around and hitting him on the back of the head.
Clink.
And they're like, oh, Shark, you shouldn't have done that. But yeah, it looks cute. It looks fun. I'm sure because it says kill the Justice League, I'm guessing you'll get a shot at all of them at some point, which will make for some fun things. And there's 4 people on the team, and my understanding is that the game is going to be, you can play it solo and you can play with up to 4 characters co-op to take on certain missions. So there'll be certain missions where you might need more than one character, and if you don't have somebody playing, you can swap out. But or you can have up to 4 people playing, so that all 4 of you are playing somebody,
Yeah,
somebody
the Arkham Asylum games, I mean, they're well-built games and, award-winning games. And I've played, I think I played 3 of them. There may only be 3. There might be a 4th. But yeah, they're very, very challenging, very well-put-together games. So I'm sure that this will be no different.
Yeah, and then the last thing on my list here was Gotham Knights, which is people are comparing it to Arkham Asylum because it seems to have some of the same game dynamics, but it's not from the same company. It's presumably not in the same universe as the Arkham games. Were you able to see that trailer at all?
I wasn't either. No.
So basically, the premise seems to be that now, how do you watch it too?
I did. So the basic trailer was Bruce Wayne, Batman, is dead. And because whatever happened triggered his death, he went ahead and sent out a code black to 4 of his former sidekicks. And
yeah, so
sorry, I'm like trying to remember. It was
that's okay. It was
Batgirl.
Yeah, it was Batgirl, Nightwing, Red Hood, and Tim Drake's Robin. So you see them all getting the code black decryption thing, and he basically says, if you're getting this, I'm dead. You know what's going to happen. As soon as they find out what's happened to me, the criminals are going to go crazy. So somebody's got to step up and show them that they can't get out of line, and all of that. And so basically you see them gearing up. And it looks like it's going to be a thing where as you progress through missions, you're going to get access to new tech. He says he gives them the bell tower as their base of operations or whatever. And he says in his little video message, some of that tech is outdated, but I have no doubt you guys can make use of it or whatever. So it looks like everybody's going to have kind of their specialties. Mm-hmm. Like you see Batgirl zipping around on the line, and then she has the cape where she can kind of float and hover. She can do that. Robin rigs up some sort of teleportation, so he's got the ability to pop in and out of different places. You see Nightwing using some moves that are very like breakdancey, like spinning kicks and all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, Red Hood uses guns and tech or whatever. So they all kind of have their special moves, their special stuff. And it looks like you gear them up more and more as you play through. So like the costume look changes throughout the game. I'm guessing as you rank up your character.
I really enjoyed that, like when they were kind of introducing them, that you could kind of see their symbols being drawn out behind them. It was almost like an anime transformation, but it was still video gamey.
Right, and it was almost like an outline of their logo, but with like neon, kind of. And then at the end, you see them all standing there together, and the neon kind of burns away to spell out Gotham Knights or whatever. But I think it's interesting to build a game around the sidekick characters. Batman's had so many. And of course,
so many.
Yeah. And of course, is Batman ever really dead? Probably not, but, nice to give the spotlight to the kids.
Maybe he wanted to take a year-long vacation somewhere.
That's right. Tahiti. I hear it's a magical place. But yeah, those look fantastic. So I'm excited to, check those out. And I didn't see for the Suicide Squad game, but I believe that I think both games are for next generation consoles. So I think the PS5 and what's the new Xbox called?
I don't remember.
Michael?
Oh, what is it? I just got my Xbox One 3 months ago. So
yeah, you're like me. I'll get the PS4 by the time the 5 comes out.
Is it Series X? Is that it?
Something like that.
Okay.
That might be it.
But that, and I know at least the Gotham Knights game is going to be PC ready too. But yeah, so all of those are coming. I think Suicide Squad's not until 2022.
Wow.
But I believe that the Gotham Knights, 2022 for PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. Yeah, so Suicide Squad's for PC as well. Yeah, but Gotham Knights, I think, is next year. So lots of cool stuff coming, and I suspect that probably what's coming in the next 2 weeks is going to be more comics and maybe animation focused, since we didn't get a lot of that this time.
Yeah, here's hoping, like maybe more movies for TV, animated stuff.
Animation is certainly the one place where I feel like DC has owned Marvel for a while now.
They kind of nail it.
Their animation game has been on point. They've produced numerous movies with, fantastic voice casts and picking from the best stories from comics to do. So I think they really own that space for a while. And I'm surprised, given Disney's connection to animation, that they haven't really put Marvel on top of that. But it doesn't seem to be a priority
at this time.
It seems to be a writing issue from the Marvel side, I believe. I think the DC writers on the animated films they're so much more creative, and they come up with some better game plans and overall scripts than what Marvel does. And anytime I sit down to watch a Marvel animated, it's very predictable. It's very online with what Marvel typically does in their books. And so DC, they throw curveballs a little bit more, and they take a little more chances.
Yeah. Well, I think that we may be seeing the future of cons here with this DC fandom thing. I know that right now we're kind of in this space where there's not a whole lot we can do. A lot of conventions that people are used to attending, especially in the summer months, have, been unable to go on this year because of the pandemic and those kinds of things. And so I think it's interesting that DC has chosen to use this moment to launch something new that's different and do it all kind of online. And I know a lot of the cons have done some online content. Mm-hmm. And it's really made it, an option for a lot of people who wouldn't normally attend a con to feel like they're participating. Now, granted, you and I know from having gone to real cons, Heidi too, that there's nothing to replace the feeling of actually being at one.
Sure.
But
or the sweat smell,
or the convention crud, or any of those things. But the notion of not having to fight to get in a line and wait for 3 hours to get a signature or to get on, get into a panel that you want to hear, and being able to watch it all live as it's happening, or watch it, a few hours after it's happened.
Yeah, this is kind of like almost like Hall H for San Diego Comic-Con. Like we're right there and being able to see everything happening.
Yeah. So I we may be seeing the future of cons. I kind of, as an old school guy, I hope that the cons as we know them don't go the way of the dodo. I know Michael doesn't. Michael, you do a lot of work at the conventions and some of those spaces where you share your artwork, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I just don't think, I think that the online for this year has been a nice replacement. But the thing is as a fan when I went, and now as a creator, you want to meet people face to face. There's just something a little bit different about that. There's something different about a celebrity being right there in front of you and you being able to ask questions,
sure,
and being able to get excited. There's something about buying art pieces from an artist in person where maybe they can make a remark, or you at least see them sign your print yourselves.
Right.
And I think a lot of the online con stuff is going to work for a minute, but eventually it's going to be no different than just the artist having an online store.
Sure. Because it's one thing to... Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. It's a good introduction maybe to see artists or to see artists you've never heard of, or see some of their stuff. But, I think at the end of the day, I think the fans are going to long for that actual, physical in-person presence and show. So. Agreed.
Yeah, I think, the sense of community is kind of lost when you're doing this via Zoom and YouTube and that kind of thing. And while it's exciting to get to hear even comics creators that are, talking about their projects and that kind of thing, it's cool to see them and hear them. Excuse me. But it's not the same thing as getting to stand at their table and carry on an actual conversation with them and ask the questions that you really care about instead of depending on somebody else to ask that question for you.
Right.
there's a real sense of community that gets built around that, and even stuff is like that I'm not into as much, like cosplay and stuff. A lot of people build their sense of belonging around those things. They put a lot of time, a lot of effort into that, and for them not to have a space to kind of share that in, other than Instagram or whatever, but they don't get to have that sort of sense of community. And even I've heard several of the actors and people involved in some of these shows talk about how they miss the convention, because for them that's the chance where they get to see people that they don't normally get to just sit down and have conversations with because they're too busy working, but at a con, when they're done signing, they can go have dinner and hang out, and it's a space for them to kind of relax a little bit as well. So I don't think we've seen the end of it. I certainly hope not, and I certainly hope not for you. I know you spend a lot of your year going to different shows, and not just conventions, of course, but all kinds of other shows. So let people know, just in case they want to come and see you and your artwork, where are you going to be in the next few weeks, and tell them where they can find you online if they want to check out some of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done 3 shows since the pandemic. I've done 3 shows in the last 6 weeks, and so there are still shows happening. You have to kind of look a little harder for them. And every show I've gone to has gone through all the mandated regulations,
protocols
to keep
and things,
safe and healthy, the protocols and stuff. And so at those shows, we've all been healthy. We've all left healthy. I've been 2 weeks after a show and still healthy, and it seems like the protocols are working. So I think those will eventually translate over to the bigger shows and to more shows. And so this weekend at the OKC Pop Culture Con, and it's also an OKC Horror Con. So they combine 2 shows to make them into one. So half of it's going to be your normal pop culture stuff. The other side is going to be kind of a horror type con. And that's going to be this Saturday and Sunday, August 29th and 30th at the Reed Center in Midwest City, Oklahoma.
All right.
And so we've got actually, I think at least 10 celebrities going to be there. An actor from The Mandalorian who played 3 different droids on the show.
Awesome.
There's a couple more actors that are mabies, but we get Screech from Saved by the Bell. He's going to be there.
All right.
He's out of the pen?
Apparently he's going to be at the show. So maybe he got out for the COVID. I don't know. But but we got a Red Ranger from Power Rangers there. So
awesome.
It's a good little lineup. No A-listers by any means, but still.
Well, listen, folks,
cool.
don't go to these shows to see the celebrities. Go for the people like Michael who put so much effort and time into not only the artwork and things that they're there to sell, but also getting to know you and great conversations and stuff. I've had the pleasure of working a con with Michael, and even though he was down the aisle from me quite a ways and we couldn't actually chat, it was such a great time for people to get to experience other people's passion and what they're up to. I was between two other artists that are friends, and Michael was down the way, and all of you guys had people stopping by your booth and getting to know you and getting to know what you do and what you're about. And you're constantly, I know you because I'm, connected to you online. You're constantly thinking of new things to put out there, whether it's a new show that's a hit thing that you're developing some artwork around, or even just like smaller segments of the fandom that you keep hearing a certain thing about, and you craft a piece of artwork to kind of solidify that for the fans who dig that kind of thing. So I'm always amazed to see what you're up to. Where can people find you online if they want to check out your work? And
Sure, yeah. Social media wise, on Facebook, Instagram, it'd be Art by MG. Just Art space by space and MG, which are my initials, Michael Garrett. And I do have a online store and website available. It's www.artbymgshop.com. I've got all my available prints available there. I've got a way for you to contact me for commission opportunities. And then you can just kind of browse through and kind of see what I'm up to. If you're a major DC fan, I've got 30 plus pieces of DC characters, a couple Batman, several Wonder Woman. I mean, you name the character, and I may have it, or shoot me an email, let me know what you want to see, and I may get it ready for you. So by all means, I'm always interested in what people are interested in, and I'm always available for commissions. So.
Which reminds me, I have a very special piece of artwork that you gave to me, which was from the first Suicide Squad film, which is a picture of Harley Quinn in her cell reading not just any book, but my book, which I appreciated very much. Very special piece of artwork to me. And I definitely encourage I definitely encourage
one of a kind.
Anybody who has a chance to go to any of these shows or even to just check Michael's stuff out online. Be sure and do that. He's a talented artist. He does some great stuff. And he's always, like I said, he's always refreshing what he's putting out there and what is kind of, paying attention to kind of the pulse of the community and what people are asking for and that kind of thing. So definitely check him out where you can. Michael, it's been great having you on the show today. We really appreciate you dropping in and calling in so that we could talk about DC fandom. I know you're a big comics guy like I am, a big DC fan as well. Maybe when some of these movies start to drop, we'll have you back on and talk about our thoughts on these things and see how they all panned out, see how good we were at guessing whether we were in for quality entertainment or whether we got a miss instead of a hit. But I guess time will tell.
That sounds like a good plan. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the information and the candor back and forth, and look forward to future calls.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate having you. Until next time.
Absolutely.
Always good to talk to Michael Garrett. Again, a big thank you to Michael Garrett for joining us on today's show. We hope that you'll check out his information, find him online, and wherever he's appearing live to sell his artwork. Again, we'll put some of those links down in the show notes so that you can find those there. Well, Heidi, after hearing all about Fandome, I know you missed some of the trailers.
I did. I'm so sorry about that because I really would have liked to have chimed in. But
anything you're particularly excited for?
You know what? Yeah, as we spoke about with Michael, I'm really excited about the next Wonder Woman movie. I've enjoyed seeing her. Her appearances and her movies have been fantastic. So I'm kind of movies.
Well, this is her second one, but she was in Batman versus Superman and Justice League.
I just feel like, she kind of carried a little bit of that. So I feel,
she's definitely been a consistent point of goodness.
Yes, she's always well acted, well written, well scripted, well directed. And I'm very excited to see the next movie, the next installation of her story. So that's one big thing. As far as what's coming up, I really do hope that there is more animation news because they really have done well with DC's done really well with their animated stuff. And
I've been slipping a lot of stuff out under my radar lately. A lot of things coming out.
Sneaky like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, there have been numerous Deathstroke animated movies that I didn't know anything about until I saw them pop up as available to purchase. And then a new Superman Man of Tomorrow animated thing that I didn't know was coming out until I saw the trailer for it. So they've definitely got a lot of stuff coming out. Again, as you mentioned at the top of that segment, we've got another thing coming up in 16, 17 days, something like that, where they're going to do some more DC Fandome. So we'll be sure and check back with anything big that drops from that event as well.
Absolutely.
As a comic book fan, I grew up, reading a lot of Marvel and DC. I've always been kind of a Marvel guy, but I never really played favorites. I like elements of both companies, and then I feel like both companies could do better on some fronts. And so I don't really play favorites when it comes to that. I know that Marvel's cinematic universe has had more time to build, and they have Kevin Feige kind of at the helm, which gives them, I feel like, a leg up in the movie side of things. But I really think that, when I see trailers like Matt Reeves' The Batman and it feels like DC's getting to the place where, okay, maybe we don't need to build everything all together all at once. Maybe we just need to let people tell really good stories.
I think I said that when we were looking at some of those. I'm like, it doesn't have to be all connected. Yes, Marvel made it work and had an amazing 23 movie run, which will continue. But that's something different and special and very possibly unique. Trying to replicate it is probably not a good idea.
Right.
And, you lose a lot from the stories and the characters that are your own to be able to do that. So just do the good stories and people will come.
And even though there's a healthy dose of competition, I'm sure, between the two companies, a rising tide raises all boats. You got you've got successful comic book movies coming out there, whether you're talking DC or Marvel, and they help everybody. Everybody keeps getting excited about these things. And I think they want, like you said, Marvel's had a great run. But one of the things Marvel does is it gives different approaches to the medium. So you've got, your Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a very ragtag bunch of people, right? You've got Captain America, who's very stalwart, very straight ahead, straight edge kind of guy. And you've got Tony Stark, who's, a bag of sarcasm with a genius intellect. And you've got, all these different characters so each of their movies has a different approach and a different tone. You got
different tone.
Winter Soldier giving you a very political, 70s political thriller kind of vibe. Yeah. You've got all these different takes. And so I think the right move for DC right now, and it seems like they're steering that direction, is to take, what you learn from a movie like Joker doing so well, whether it was your cup of tea or not. The focus was on making the best Joker movie they could make and not worrying about how it fit with everything else.
Right.
I think that seems to be Matt Reeves' approach to this new Batman series. And so if he can give us a solid Batman movie, who cares if it connects up to Wonder Woman or not? We know that other versions of Batman have, so we don't need it all to work together constantly.
We really don't. Yeah.
Give us a good story. Give us a well-acted, well-written story, well-directed. And let the story do the work instead of worrying about what you're going to build. And, and the truth is, as successful as Marvel has been, if they don't continue to find new ways of challenging, the approach so that they can avoid things feeling same.
Yeah.
And feeling stale, I think that, they've got to keep challenging themselves as well.
Yes.
But it's good to see DC getting some traction and finding its legs in this game. They don't have to compete with Marvel at Marvel's level. They had a head start. They just need to give us the best DC content they can.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
And I'm glad to see them headed that direction.
Yeah, same.
Okay, well, that's it for us. Now, we know that you guys have plenty of different podcasts you could be listening to, so we want to thank you for taking the time to listen to us ramble on about DC fandom. We appreciate you being here. We'll be back next time with all new subject matter. Who knows what we'll talk about?
More DC
given our lack of sleep, it could be anything.
Yeah, this is true.
I just want to remind you right before we go, I do have a back-to-school sale going on at my web store. If you'd like any fiction for yourself or for anyone else in your life, be sure and go to my web store. That's jpatricklamar.com/store. There will be a bit.ly link down in the show notes as well for you to follow. Just use promo code BACK2, the number 2 school, through that web store, and you can get 30% off any paperback in stock there. All right, that's it for us. We hope that you will join us next time. Until then, for Heidi and I, bye.
Bye.
It's real in so many streets. So I use my power, send a message for the ones that can't speak up. Only took about an hour to write this letter. I'm feeling weak. Reminds me of that dream, that speech from the king. New day and age, I'm trying to do the same things. But it's hard for a brother, I speak no excuse. So hard for a youngin' just telling the truth. These images